The university experience is something that everyone in these seats today has been a part of in one form or another. For the parents and guardians, university was a new take on life for your students. No matter what school you attended beforehand, whether it was middle school or a different high school, what attracted you to university was your impression of the uniqueness of the experience. And for this afternoon's graduates and students, it was more than just a new experience. It was the next stage in our lives. And the beauty and intricacy of this experience, both for the parents and the students, is the fact that in 16 years of graduating classes, every student and parent has had it, but not one person has had the same one. For all of us, freshman year was the expository period of our high school careers. It was the first chapter in the book that was our independent lives. It can even be likened, in some sense, to a team-building exercise that our class did on our freshman retreat. We were split into teams and instructed to build rafts out of materials that had been provided in order to make it across the lake back to camp. These materials were usable, and a few of the groups actually managed to make it a decent portion of the way before capsizing. Unfortunately, in the special case of Eric Major, who never learned to swim, other groups did not. As the raft began to buckle, I began wondering how I would get across, and the boat scene from Unbroken began playing in my mind. But the spirit of one Chuck Webster was not just a friendly face in the motorboat that eventually picked me up, but the fuel behind the school that made us who we are today. As I sat with Mr. Webster on the boat, I felt many things, mostly at once. Immediately, I felt comfort because I would not have to build a flare and signal a rescue plane. More importantly, though, I felt relieved that the path to the other side of the lake was now clear and I had an end goal in mind. But most significantly, I felt grateful that I had a friend with which to make the rest of the journey. This is the single linear experience that every university student and parent shares. At one point, we were all looking for some direction, not sure exactly where to turn. And at one point, university stepped in and said, "Let me help." And it did. From our newness as freshmen, we were guided and nurtured into our experience and active involvement as sophomores. More importantly, we began to develop relationships. Not relationships based on perceived social status, but relationships based on values and interests that were shared. The university population offers something for almost everyone, and for us in particular, it offered the opportunity to begin learning who we were and how we fit into the world. I learned that the way I think and the way I view the world isn't shared by everyone, which isn't something I had been exposed to previously, having attended a religious middle school. Through that, I personally learned the immeasurable value of a good, honest conversation between people that have a genuine desire to understand one another. But it wasn't just me. If there's anything university community members are good at, it's talking. Sometimes too much. But through all of the morning meetings, assemblies, announcements, and conversations during passing periods, we began learning how to develop our own thoughts and pursue our own dreams, sometimes with the help of others and sometimes despite them. However we fit in, our sophomore year was the first step in making us all the people we are today and the people we will be for the rest of our lives. Our junior year ushered in a conceptual shift in how we saw the community around us. We stopped being mere beneficiaries of the university experience, but began actively contributing to it. We began helping others with their own university experiences, whether it was as facilitators on freshman retreats or as captains on sports teams. Along with that, college stopped seeming like such a distant dream, and it became much more of a pressing issue than any of us were prepared for. We had to learn to balance standardized testing with the growing life outside of school and the continued responsibilities that we had as students and community leaders at university. But fortunately for me and a few other people that will remain unnamed, despite what your teachers tell you, life is not like algebra. There is no formula for getting you from point A to point B in human development. However, we all found a way to adapt, and a big part of finding our way was beginning to develop a strong sense of self. I became much more grounded in my faith, which allowed me to stop seeing the world around me as something I should seek to benefit from. I learned that with something as simple as hope, I would be provided the strength I needed to make it a truly better place. When we began finding our sense of self and really buying into the people we were becoming, we discovered the mindset changes we needed in order to succeed at this new level. This proved to be a timely development because the structure of the school itself was also beginning to change. Whether it was the introduction of co-curricular classes like Race in America and graphic novel, or the active planning that the environmental science class began with the goal of converting university into a space that nurtured both students and the environment around it, everyone in this room tonight saw the beginning of university's next big steps. As we reached the beginning of our final chapter of high school, we spent as much time looking behind us as we did looking ahead. Part of that, of course, was that we were now quite literally at the top of the ladder. We were the leaders of the school and were expected to be the example not just for the freshmen, but to the community around us of what university stood for. But another, perhaps larger part of the reflective process was seeing the legacy we left behind. Whether it was freshmen in the hallway imitating the upperclassmen in mannerisms and conversations, or the foundation of a club that gathered all students behind one man's love for a television program. University became for us what we together have been making it since our first day of school in 2015. We had finally begun to reap the harvest of diversity, commitment to excellence, personal responsibility, stewardship, creativity, and respect that we had all been sowing since our first days on campus. The most beautiful part to me about all of this is that the way we all reached this culminating point in our careers was completely individual. Some of us pursued independent study projects on the behavior and neurology of deep-sea animals. Others of us led study groups, and others still found callings that led us to outside organizations that we may not have been exposed to in a different setting. But whatever the method, we are now the sum of our choices. And from here, it is our obligation to take the university spirit into the next stages of our lives. The skills and sense of community that we cultivated and nurtured here can now be used to make the world around us a better place. So as we finish this chapter in our lives and open the next, whatever it may be, we can take comfort in knowing that university has become what we have made it, and that we are, as is every member of our community, the university experience.